Good morning. It is currently May 6th, 11 o'clock. I want to do a video that I've been thinking about for a long time already. And this one is Jason and Medea. Now, this isn't Jason and Medea from the epic of the Golden Fleece or the story of Jason and the Argonauts. This is a very specific Jason and Medea from a 50-page book from Apollonius of Rhodes. It's super quick, it's super fast to read. Penguin Classics publishes it, and I got it for like $1 at the bookstore. And it is a good view to see inside the life of these two characters and how they became one without getting into the whole story. If you just want to find out about part of their relationship, this is a good place to start. So, Medea is a Greek witch. She is son of the brother of Circe. So Circe is her aunt, and Circe is a Greek goddess of witchcraft, and so Jason is a Greek hero. He was tasked with the adventure to bring back the Golden Fleece, which is on a island protected by a dragon. You know, the typical, the most fairy tale type thing you could think of. And so what happens is that in the story, the way that it begins is that you just hear somebody talking to themselves, somebody explaining that this isn't right, that this is wrong, there should be some intervention, there should be some sort of aid in along the journey of Jason in order to reach his point. And that's just where it starts. You don't know who's talking, and it's pretty cool because you kind of start picking up the pieces, knowing that you're getting in the middle of a story rather than from the very beginning. And you find out that it's Athena. Athena's talking to herself, thinking out loud, and she has an idea to go ask Hera for help. So she asks Hera, what are we gonna do? He needs a woman's intervention. He needs a goddess to help him along his way, because women are known to help men along their journeys in a lot of these books. And so Hera says, we can help him, but we can't make it look like we were involved. We have to make it as subtle as possible. And so they say, what's the best way to do it? You know, we can't just go in there, appear to him as godly beings. And so they get the idea that love is going to be the factor that's going to mesh the two ideas together. So they think we could make a woman help him. We could make a woman fall in love with him and help him along his journey, a mortal woman. So they say, that's a great idea. But neither of us can do that. So Hera says, let's go talk to Aphrodite. The dreaded confrontation of going to talk to her. Apparently they're not that good of friends with her. I don't know if it's because of the golden apple incident or if it's just an ongoing thing. But they go to Aphrodite's house. They say that she was lounging around on a couch, you know, looking at her own beauty, and Hephaestus was at work in his cave, you know, smiting and smelting and iron working and all that good stuff. So they go to her and ask her, can we, you know, sit down, talk to you? And she kind of knew something was up, so she was being all like evasive, being a little like, knowing that she's like the best, quote unquote. She's like, oh, what makes you come to my place? And she's talking to them like with a little bit of like a twist in her tongue. And Athena held her tongue. Hera told her, let me do all the talking. And so Athena was just sitting there biting her tongue, and Hera was like telling her like, oh yeah, we just want to talk to you, we just want to see how things are going. And then she was telling her that she didn't need her help directly, probably so they wouldn't be indebted to each other, so she wouldn't owe her anything. She said, but she wants the help of her son. So she asked Eros, or otherwise known as the Roman counterpart Cupid. She says, have Cupid shoot an arrow into Medea to fall in love with Jason. So she says, okay, sure, why not? Aphrodite goes to her son. She talks to him, and she goes to tell Cupid or Eros to shoot Medea in the chest. She tells him she's gonna get him a toy from Hephaestus. Hephaestus is known to do smith, right? He's the god of ironwork. He's the god of getting things done with metal, iron, and creating stuff like that. So Aphrodite bribes him. It says that she goes to visit him in Mount Olympus, and she tells him that she has a gift for him. She has a gift crafted by Hephaestus himself, which is this perfectly spherical toy that's made out of 100 golden rings, and every time you toss it, a blue flame comes from the trail of this toy. And she was laughing at him because he was being a little troublemaker. He was playing with another kid, and he kept stealing toys from the other kid, and Aphrodite loved it. She was like, I like that my son's a little troublemaker. She's like, so I'm gonna have him cause more trouble. And the funny thing is, they go into the depths of describing the Twin Peaks, where Cupid goes up to, at the very, very top. It says the highest point in their entire Mount Olympus, and he could see everything from up top there, and he gets a clear vision of Medea from sitting up top of those Twin Peaks. And the funny thing is, those Twin Peaks are in the Epic of Gilgamesh too. They're the exact same position that he goes to when he speaks to the crab people. But that's a different story. But so he goes up there, shoots Medea. Then the story completely transfers to become the story of how Jason and Medea first met. So it has it that it's describing Jason and his men, and they dock their boat at this new island, and his men are talking amongst themselves. And the people on board are very, very heavy hitters in Greek mythology. So you have the twin brothers, which are the Gemini brothers. You have Jason, you have, I forget the other ones, I'll probably put them up somewhere here. But you have a bunch of heavy hitters on this boat. Oh, the father of Achilles is on here too. And they're thinking of a way on how to go about getting the help that they need in order to continue on to their journey. So Jason is the more civilized hero. His other partner, his right-hand man, is telling him, let's go in there and force them to help us. Tell them if they don't help us, then we're going to attack their village and attack the people and take it regardless. And Jason says, no, let's have dinner, let's talk, let's sit down and talk to them, because war is the last thing we want to do. He's like, why kill men when we could unify two cities together rather than both of them getting burnt down and burning bridges? So the other guy reluctantly says, okay, we'll do it your way. Decides to take him up on his advice, and they dock their boats, and they go into the town. Now, this town is ruled by Aeetes. That's Medea's father. And Aeetes is angry. He is not a happy sorcerer. He has a temper about him. And he has messengers tell him that a boat landed. The two men go tell him. And he says, bring them over. Everybody was about to go to bed. He says, start cooking. Start getting the cauldrons going, start getting the meals, the wine. Everybody sat at the table. And in Greek customs, in the books that I've read at least, it's the hospitality that you have to give somebody. It's the will of Zeus that you have to, when somebody comes over to your house, you have to feed them, offer them water, offer them food. And then after all of that is done, first you provide them shelter and warmth. After all of that is done, then you ask them why they're there. And that's exactly what Aeetes did. So they sat down at the table and they were eating, and it said that Medea was getting ready with her sisters in the chamber, and when she walked out and she saw Jason for the first time, that was at the previous part of the story when Cupid's arrow came down and landed right on her chest. The moment she saw him, it hit her. And at that point, they said that she felt like a burning sting in her heart, and then it turned into like a overall flame going around her body, the sensation of heat. And it's a good way to describe it, because, caring for someone is as much of a feeling as it is a vulnerability, right? She felt that burning sensation fill her body just as a typical arrow would. You would feel a hot sting, and then you would feel like blood, and you would feel the hormones kicking in. So it's a pretty cool metaphor that they use that. But she saw him. She instantly knew she had to help him. So they ended up talking to the guys. They all had dinner. They all celebrated, talked about great war. Aeetes loved it. He was like, these are warriors. I like these men at my table. And he finally asked them, why are you guys here? What brought you to my town? And Jason tells him that half of them are, part divine. Some of their fathers are Zeus. Some of their fathers are this god and that and the other. And there's a son of Ares on there, I believe. And he goes into telling all those stories, and that's when Aeetes snaps. He gets mad. The Witch King says, you guys are full of it. You guys are just straight up lying to my face. How are you gonna come in some man's house and claim that you have a boat full of demigods? Like, he's like, that just doesn't happen. He's like, I don't believe you. He's like, I want you gone. And so they get mad and they think like, and you know, Jason is trying to hold his right hand man back, telling him that, yo, like, let's hear him out. Let's listen to what he has to say. So he does. He says, all right, why are you like this? What do you want? How can I prove to you that we are what we say we are? And he says, you want to prove it? He's like, sure, I'll have you prove it. He's like, tell you what. He's like, I have a task for you. What you're going to do is you're going to go to my field. You're going to yoke, which is pretty much slap on the reins or the harness on top of an animal. He's like, you're going to yoke my cattle that breathe fire and have teeth of bronze and horns of bronze. After that, you're going to make them sow the entire, I believe, 2 acres of land that I have there. And then you're going to plant dragon teeth in where those fire-breathing bulls sowed. You're going to plant dragon teeth. From those dragon teeth, soldiers of clay are going to pop up. And you're going to have to kill all the soldiers. Do that all within 1 day's time frame. And I'll help you get the golden fleece. I forgot what he needed from him exactly, but he needed his help. I believe he had the golden fleece. I'm not quite sure on this part. Don't quote me on this. But that was his offer to him, to tell him from there on out he'll aid him. And Jason and his men were listening like, what? They were like, how? How is that even possible? Like, nobody can do that. And Jason thinking to himself like, this is rough. And his right-hand man telling him, no, we're not doing this. But Jason said, he told the King Aeetes, he told him, okay. He's like, we'll do it. And all of his men were nervous. They were like, why did you say that? In their head, they were holding their breath while he was talking because they were still at the dinner table. And he said, fine, let me know when you're ready. Prepare your ship, prepare everything you got on board. And then from there on out, we will discuss where it is, and I'll go and watch you try to perform this task. So Jason says, okay, that's fine. He goes back to his ship. His right-hand man is telling him he's absolutely nuts, out of his mind. There's something wrong, couple screws missing. And Jason just says, we're heroes, and this is part of our journey. If we said no to this, then we don't own the rights to have the golden fleece. He's like, how is this one little thing going to stop us from reaching the golden fleece? He's like, sure, it's probably impossible, but at least I want to try doing it rather than just saying no and then never reaching it at all. It's pretty much get rich or die trying in his eyes. And so there was a few men waiting back on the boat that were just watching it, waiting. They tell them the story and they think they're absolutely bonkers. Nobody's on board with it. And in the meantime, while they're discussing it, talking about it, a dove comes flying down away from, I believe it's a raven. It's flying and it gets away from it, and the dove ends up landing on Jason's lap. It falls on his lap, and the raven ends up accidentally killing itself, falling on the spike on the stern of the ship. And he just flies right into it, killed himself. And they all stopped and looked at each other. And it's so super common for birds to be messengers of the gods in Greek mythology. So they all knew. They were like, okay, this is a sign. We do know that birds, every god has its own represented bird. Athena has the owl, Zeus has the eagle, Aphrodite has the dove. And they all stopped and looked at the dove in his lap and said, what does this mean? And then somebody said, maybe, just maybe, this is a sign that we've been praying to the wrong god the whole time. We've been praying to Zeus for power, to Ares for brute strength and battle cries and war. He's like, his friend told him, maybe we should be praying to the women goddesses. Maybe we've been seeking help from the wrong people the whole time. We don't need brute strength. In tasks like this, sure, we need brute strength, but we also need women's intervention, and we also need aid from women, whether it be mentally, socially, morally, whatever it may be. They didn't know what it was, but they knew they needed it. And that's when the story of Athena and Hera plotting out the task met with Jason and his crew members and the Argonautica finding out what they had to do. Now, it doesn't even say that Aphrodite sent this. Maybe this was just something that just happens by the ladies of fate. Maybe the birds just come down to let them know what the gods are planning, but the gods don't send them themselves. So one of his comrades told him that they're all crazy, that no way is he praying to a woman. He was that typical macho guy that says, I am not praying to women, I'm a man, I do things with strength, and I'm just 100% made of steel, raw eggs, and steak. And they said, all right, you do you, we're gonna do us. You keep praying to to Ares and Zeus, and we're gonna start praying to Aphrodite. So he said, fine. Once you guys die, don't come running to me. So they both did their own plan. Meanwhile, after dinner, Aeetes was fuming, the father of Medea. He was fuming, mad, and he wanted to know what these guys' problem were. So his wife is scared of him when he's mad. Apparently he has a bad temper, so she went straight to her room. And his daughters and sons, they were kind of waiting around. The sons stayed with them, the daughters went back to the bedchambers. And Medea had with her some maidservants because they were priestesses of, I believe, Hecate, another goddess of nighttime witchcraft beings. I believe she's the one that helps you cross thresholds. I know she has three heads, three personalities about her. She's usually seen as three figures: middle-aged woman, a young woman, and an old lady, and they're all holding torches and they have animals that they're rescuing, usually out at night. Medea prays to her. People think she's a weird one. She's the black sheep of the family. She's that weird one in the house that goes to the temple of what they call witches, and back then that wasn't seen as cool as it is now. And nowadays we have Halloween and we love witches. We have documentaries, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, a bunch of other shows, but back then she was weird. So she's concocting ideas in her head. She's thinking of how she can help. She knows in herself that if she doesn't intervene, those men are dead. She's like, how is this possible that the man I just met and decided to care for, or just cared for, is gonna die the next day? She's like, I need to find a way to intervene. So she's like, I need to talk to Hecate. I need to ask her for some guidance. I need to find a way to do it. She's like, I can't physically help him. She's like, but what I do know is potions, witchcraft of strength and weakness and love and hate. And she's like, I know different concoctions, many different concoctions. But then she's torn. She's like, because she's like, my father hates him. Aeetes wants him dead. If I help him, I'm betraying my father and my own country. She's like, so she was weighing out the two options. She's like, do I help this strange man who I never met before and disobey my father's commands, or do I live tried and true to my own people and obey the will of my father, but then never have this man in my life again and have him die? The man I just decided to care for, or just started caring for. So she's torn. She's up all night. Says she doesn't sleep a single minute. That she is in tears. She's crying. She's staying up at night, even thinking to herself that she'd rather die than have to make a decision like this. And she almost does it. She goes into her witchcraft box in her wardrobe. She pulls out some, Night Stalker death plant leaf and mixes it. And she's right about to put it into her tongue when she gets the idea that no, she's not going to do it. She's like, I'd rather, and she fought herself against this 3 times in a row. I don't know if this is, in keeping up with the theme of Hecate, since she's her priestess, but she said no. At the very last minute, right before she swallowed the potion, she said she's not going to do it. So what she does is she decides to help Jason, of course, as the story goes. She decides to help Jason. She says she's going to make him a potion to make him immortal for a day. She doesn't want to make anybody else immortal because gods don't really, the Greek gods typically don't like that. They kind of get mad at that. So she makes it. She makes a potion. She does her magic, works on it all night, and she has a plan in the morning, and she tells one of her maidservants to go tell the men at the ship to meet her at her temple the next day before they go off to ship to the Raging Bulls. So her maidservant goes, talks to Jason's right-hand man. Jason's right-hand man goes and tells the message to Jason. Everything's in play. She is up all night working on this thing. She goes into the temple in the morning with her maidservants, and they're dancing, doing their prayers, doing their chants, typical stuff that they always do, so nothing looks suspicious. And she told them all, when when those 2 soldiers are coming, I want you guys to make scares. I need some alone time with Jason. And so they said, okay, that's no problem, right? She was the leader. So they're dancing, and every time that she would like do a spin or turn around, she would try to look at the door to try to see Jason, to try to see if he was coming, if he was not. And then Jason and his right-hand man come like morning time the next day, they're approaching. And something in Jason's friend told him that Jason should go alone. I don't know if it was a God's intervention or if it was Aphrodite's, relationship advice, even though she's not the best at relationships, but maybe she's the one that told him that they should be alone for the first time that they meet one-on-one. So he tells him, he's like, I'm gonna wait here. You go on ahead. You go to the temple, and you meet Medea there. He's like, I'll be on lookout. And Jason says, all right, that's cool. No problem with me. He walks up to the temple. Medea sees him. She tells all the girls to run. She's like, get out of here. I gotta talk to him. So they all go hide and go around the doors and corners, and they're listening, waiting. And when they first meet, it was funny because they both, at that point, Jason actually saw her for who she was. Before she was just a king's daughter. She was just that woman at the dinner. But then when he saw her face to face, he was like, wow, this is a pleasant surprise. He instantly cared for her. He was like, he started reciting poems to her. And the way that the author describes it says that it was like 2 trees that grew up together but never met. And then one winter, the tree branches connect and the wind blows, and all you hear is this back and forth chitter chatter of those branches making noise, which turns into music, which is kind of like what happened. They ended up talking, and he was in love with her. He was like, I want to take you back home. I want to give you proper land, and I want to give you a home. And she said, yeah, that's what all the men say. She's like, you're just going to forget about me once the task is done. You're only saying this because I'm helping you with this potion. And he was like, no, he's like, I mean it. I need you in my life. So she says, all right, once you're done with your task, scoop me up. I'll go with you back to your homeland. He was like, really? She's like, yeah. So she tells him there's a proper way to use this potion. She's like, you better do it right, because if you die, then your promise means nothing. So he's like, no. He's like, I'll do it. So then she told him the first step, he has to dig a hole. He has to rinse himself in the river that's nearby, I think 7 times in a row. After that, he puts the box of herbs inside, he buries it, and then he chants a chant to Hecate, who will then appear to him, and he needs to turn around before she appears, and he needs to walk away from the box. Once he walks away from the box, he's going to hear all these things that's going to make him want to turn around, but if he turns around, he's dead. So he needs to keep walking. Once he reaches back to his ship, she gave him a powder to coat it on his armor and his weapons, and it'll make it impenetrable. It'll be the toughest of the toughest. Nothing will ever hurt it. And she even told him, you could put this on your body too, and nothing will pierce your skin during 24 hours. And after that, go do your thing. And he was like, okay. He repeated it back to her, so they both knew that they both understood what was to happen. And he told his men, he left. He said he'll be back for her. He left, he got on the boat, shipped out. She immediately went to go tell her servants, to tell her dad's servants, to tell him that they're off to go do it so he could go watch. And he was extra. He said, I'm gonna put on my golden armor, my crazy and encrusted gold-plated plumes and spears made of gold. And he just wanted to show up to let Jason know that he was once or is a soldier, and he has well-trained eyes watching him do this task, and he better not mess it up. And it was kind of like a message to tell him that, to dress up like that. He could have gone in whatever casual clothes they had back then, but he wanted specifically his armor. So they go. Everybody goes. Jason does the task of docking the ship. He goes to the river nearby. He tells his men, get ready, I'll be right back. He goes, he rinses himself 7 times. He digs a hole, specifically the exact same length that Medea told him to do it. Puts the box in, buries it, recites the chant to Hecate X amount of times, I forgot how many times, and he turns around, and it says that while he was chanting it, she started coming up from the underworld, or from the spirit world, and she had like hissing of snakes all around her. She had like flame. She was carrying her torch, and then you heard bats and screams and black cats running around, and it was scary noises going on, like howlings, and he had to just turn around and keep walking, just put his head down and kept walking straight. And behind him, he just kept hearing howlings and hissings and cats and all these spooky things. And he was not to turn around, and he didn't. He kept walking forward, and then she stayed there, and she was, I guess, blessing him throughout the entire process. So Jason goes back to his men, shows him the powder that Medea gave him, and he rubs it on his sword and his spear, and the other men are like, there's no way that works. So he held up Jason's spear, grabbed his sword, and swatted at it, and lo and behold, spear was perfect, his sword dented. And he was like, whoa. So Jason said, I'm going to rub this all over my body. Not even his armor, his body. He took off all of his armor, lathered up, looking like a greased up bodybuilder. And his men thought he was crazy. They're like, you are nuts to trust this woman like this. But he just knew. He knew that he could do it and get away with it. So the sun was rising. The king was there. He was watching. And Medea had told him ahead of time, once he starts the fight, yoke the fire-breathing bulls with bronze horns and teeth, make them sow the 2 acres of land, plant the dragon seeds, and then once the clay soldiers start growing, he needs to throw a huge rock in the middle of all the soldiers once they grow, so that they all think that the other one threw it, and they all start fighting amongst themselves, because they're not actual mortals. They're not capable of thought like they were. They were just made of clay, but they were just soldiers with brute strength. If you think bones are strong, bones and flesh, imagine someone 100% clay with armor. It's not easy. So she said, after they all pick themselves off, you come in and kill the last few and become the hero of the day. So that's exactly what he did. He had the bulls come in. He saw them. It was 2 huge, larger than life bulls. They end up coming down and breathing fire, smoke in their eyes, and they're just terrifying beasts. He tells his men that he's going to do it alone. And again, they think he's crazy. They think he's out of his mind and he needs to see a doctor. But he persists and says, I have Medea's enchantments and you guys don't. I'm going to do this all by myself. And the king loved the fact that he was without armor. He thought that was like the best way to prove his point. And Medea, of course, she loved seeing her man all lathered up. So he ends up, wrestling the bulls. It said that the first one charged at him. He dodged it. As it was dodging away, he grabbed its rear leg. And with the other one, he wrestled it with one hand, grabbed him by the horn, and pinned him down. That just threw everybody by surprise. They were all just so shocked. And they were like, how is this man this strong? But the enchanted thing also gave him more strength. Pinned him down. At the same time, he told his men to throw him the yoke, grabbed it, pinned it on both of them, and made them start sowing. Pushed them along the 2 acres of land, and they did the entire thing back and forth, because once they had that yoke on them, they became tame. And it was the hard part was just getting it on them. Once he got it on them, he was planting the dragon seeds behind them. And once he planted them, he went to go hide behind a small mound. Now there was a mound in the distance and there was rocks all around it, so he was like, this is the perfect spot to go. He was there waiting for the soldiers to start coming out of the clay and growing, and they were there waiting for him, and everybody was watching Jason's next step, and they couldn't see him behind the mound. He came out with a boulder the size of his courage, and it was huge. And it said that no mortal man could lift that by himself. It would take 3 to 4 men just to pick it up. But he single-handed, one person picked it up and threw it at all the clay soldiers, and they all fought amongst themselves, and they clashed, and he swooped in at the end, exactly what Medea said to do, and got away with it. He won, walked up to Aeetes and told him, I am owed your service now. And the book ends there. Random. Just out of the blue. It starts in the middle of nowhere and it ends in the middle of nowhere. And I guess I have to read the rest of the books in order to go along with whatever else happens. But that was just a really cool story by Apollonius of Rhodes, talking about like how interesting it is that all these Greek stories, all these heroes never fully make it up until the woman, a woman comes in to help them. Every hero has a divine intervention, if not just a womanly intervention. Odysseus had Athena at his side, left and right. She would pop down, come in disguise, be an old lady, be an old man, disguise herself, give him information. Even his son Telemachus was getting advice from Athena. And not even just him, not even just her. He had Circe help him along his way. He had a bunch of slick conversations with women in order to get certain things done. He even had Penelope holding off the suitors while he was waiting to come back. And had all those things not helped him, he would have never been the man that he is. And I feel like that's the point that this book is trying to make. That sure, there's a whole grand story of Jason and Medea being, this crazy long epic journey, if even just Jason alone, but the author wanted to specifically talk about how Medea helped him and why it should be its own book. And without the exact proper advice that she laid out for him, that was like pretty much a blueprint, if he didn't follow it, the whole story of the house would fall. He would have never made it. So it just goes to show that, like, brute strength isn't always the way, and that's something that men have to learn as they get older. That sure, you could be big and tough and angry and aggressive, but that's only going to get you either locked up or in bar fights with scars, missing an eyeball on a bar stool. And it's just balancing that act of masculine and feminine energy, and you need that in order to accomplish a good goal. You got to have that thought process behind everything you do too, because as men, we just want to rush in and tackle things, just like his right hand man was trying to get him to do, his best friend, who was always telling him, like, let's just fight, let's just go in there, let's just make this an epic and a tragedy at the same time. But he was like, no, there has to be a better way. And the gods knew that he needed a woman to show him that better way. But anyway, that's the story. I hope you guys liked my telling of it. I tried to find it online, I could not find it. I'm gonna discuss certain things that I can never find on YouTube, and this was one of them. And I thought it was really cool. I thought it was very well written by Apollonius of Rhodes, the first book I read by him, I believe. And it was nice. I really liked it. Especially seeing how the gods, one little conversation or one little manipulation can have a ripple effect. And it's the butterfly effect of great minds at work. Had Athena not said anything to Hera, she would have had to do things a completely different way. But she talked to Hera talked to Aphrodite talked to Eros. So, and then Eros got into Medea's heart, and Medea got to Jason, and they accomplished the goal together. So it was really literally just a transaction of effects happening. But that's just how life is, like Amazon didn't grow big because of one little step. It was a bunch of little tiny steps that led them to be where they are now, But yeah, that's the book. Hope you guys liked it. Like and subscribe. This video is really long now, so I'm going to cut it off here. Bye.